Okay, so let's get started. Very good morning to all. Thanks for your time and joining this demo session. My name is Ravi Kumar, and about my experience, I have 11 plus years of experience in the IT industry. I do consulting, implementing, and administration of Microsoft and VMware product. In cloud services, I take care of Azure Active Directory, Azure administration and migration to Azure, Office 365 implementation, migration to Office 365. In on-prem virtualization, I take care of VMware administration and Hyper-V, and also I take care of Windows Server administration and any services and roles running on top of it. And also in messaging, I take care of Exchange. So this is my quick introduction. Okay, so let's get started. So today we are going to have a demo for the Azure administration AZ104. Okay, so I'll just cover what all the topics we'll be covering in this entire training. Okay, so overall we'll be covering 15 modules, and it's a 30 plus hours course content, and it's a 90% practical oriented, right? So we discuss about the service and we will see how to deploy the services on a backend. So in module 1 we'll be covering introduction to cloud computing, benefits of cloud computing, types of cloud computing, and introduction to Azure, and what are the ways you manage Microsoft Azure. We'll be understanding in the module 1. Module 2 will be understanding about the subscription. So what are the types of subscription available, and how do you create your Azure subscription? How do you manage your Azure subscription? How do you work with your resources? We'll be covering in the module 2. Module 3 will be covering about the compute, like how do you build virtual machines in the cloud, and what are the ways you can access and manage it, and how do you deploy the services using the ARM template. Like we'll understand what is Azure resource manager template, how do we create and how do we manage, we'll be seeing in the module 3. And in module 4 we'll be covering on the calculator part. So whenever you get a requirement to deploy any services in Azure, so you want to know what is the cost, so we will be seeing like how do we use the Azure calculator and how do we get the estimation, and also we'll have a brief introduction about like how the charges will be applied. In module 5, we'll be covering on the storage part, like if you want to store any data in the cloud, right? So how do you consume the Azure storage service, and how do you keep your data? How do you manage your data? We will be understanding in the module 5. And in module 6, we'll be understanding about the networking, right? So what is networking in Azure? How do we create the virtual network in cloud? When you have multiple networks in Azure, how do you connect each other and allow the traffic flow? And how do you securely establish your connection from your individual device to Azure as well as from your on-prem to Azure? We'll be covering on the VPN concepts, and also we'll be covering Azure load balancer, right? So, and also we'll be covering here a real-time scenario, like if you host an application, how do you balance it, right? So how do you integrate with your load balancer and how it works? We'll be understanding. Also, we'll be understanding like how do you control your traffic flow within Microsoft Azure using the network security group. So with this, we'll be covering the core services like compute, network, and storage. And also we'll be covering like what will be the day-to-day activity with respect to your Azure administration, like working with your VM disk, the network card, and the custom DNS, and the snapshot part. And also like how do you work with the image part, like how do you create your custom image and how do you work. So we'll be looking in the module 8, and we will be seeing like what are the ways you can host your application in Azure in a high availability mode. We'll be looking into the high availability services, and also like how do you automate your horizontal scaling using Azure scale set. So we'll be seeing the services as well. So we'll be covering on the fast service, like web application and SQL database, like how do you create, how do you connect, and how do you manage. So we'll be seeing in the uh, fast part. And also we'll be looking into the Azure Active Directory, right? So how do you manage your identity and access management in the cloud? What is Azure Active Directory? How do you create your objects and how do you manage them? what is Azure AD premium feature, how do you integrate your on-prem AD with Azure AD, we'll be looking into it. And also we'll be seeing like how do you protect your data in on-prem or in the cloud using Azure recovery services, like backing up of your files and folders, backing up of your VMs, and what are the restore option available, we'll be seeing the model 13. And also we'll be seeing like how do you monitor and troubleshoot your workload running in the cloud. So these are the topics wherein we'll be covering in this entire training. And if at all, if anything which you need to add as a part of Azure administration, you can let me know, we can add it. Okay. So if I'm going fast, or if you need any relevant examples, you can stop me and you can ask me anytime. Yeah. Any questions, any doubts on the course content? Okay. If you have any questions, you can drop your messages, like your questions in the message box. Okay. So now, so is it the right course? Like if I want to start my career in IT field or in a cloud computing, right? So is this the right content to start, right? So and what are the prerequisites? And also what are the learning paths? So what is the first thing I need to start, and what is the next step I can do it, right? So what is the roadmap for studying in the Azure, right? So let's try to understand that. Okay, I just need to update this slide, I've not done it. Okay. So so this is the main Azure certification part, right? So AZ 900 is a paper which talks about the Azure fundamentals, right? So here, this Azure fundamentals is a optional certification. Okay, optional certification in the sense it's not a prerequisite if you want to get Azure admin certification. Okay, and which talks about completely about the cloud fundamentals and the Azure fundamentals. Okay, and certification is optional, and there are two main learning part in Azure. So one is Azure administration. Earlier the paper code was 103, now it is 104. Okay, so which talks purely about how do you manage, build and manage your infrastructure in the Microsoft Azure cloud, right? So that is what is the one we will be looking into it. And next thing is AZ 204, right? So which talks purely about the developing solution in the Microsoft Azure, right? How do you build and develop your application in the Microsoft Azure is a 204. Okay. So this is for a developer, right? So if you're looking for a developing part, right? So this is the right track for you. And AZ104 is completely managing your infrastructure in the cloud, like compute, network, storage, and other services, managing it. Okay. So what to do after 104? Like if you are interested as a Azure DevOps, right? So the prerequisite for Azure DevOps is AZ104 content plus AZ400 is your Azure DevOps content. So prerequisite is AZ104, or you can learn 204 plus 400. So with this also you can achieve Azure DevOps Engineer Expert. Okay. So this is one way to learn Azure DevOps. So if you do 104, I'm not interested in DevOps, I want to do a next level. So AZ305 is the Azure Architect paper, right? So this is a new paper which has been introduced this year. Okay. AZ104 plus 305. Sorry. Yeah. So AZ104 plus 305. With this, you'll be entitling the Azure Solution Architect. So earlier there were different courses, right? So this is not anymore. Okay. And if at all, if you are looking on security, right? So there is Azure Security, right? So which is AZ500. So this you can directly take. Otherwise, if you're interested to learn Azure Admin, next you want to know about the Azure Security, then you can do AZ10 plus 500 as well. If at all, if you're looking core level networking, right, on the Azure cloud, so you can directly take AZ700. It's always good, like if you know AZ-104, so that you will have an idea like how the infrastructure is built in cloud and how do you work. So 104 plus AZ-700 will also help on the Azure network. Okay, so this is the learning path in Microsoft Azure. Any questions, any doubts on this? Yeah, if you have any questions, please unmute and ask. Otherwise, we can put it on the Dropbox, your messages. Okay, 1 second, hold on. Where it is? Yeah. So this is about the learning path. So in this training, we'll be learning on AZ-104. And what are the prerequisites, right? So let's take example. I just passed out my graduation, right? So now I'm looking for my career in cloud, so cloud computing, or I have experience in IT industry, like on virtualization or Windows, Linux, storage, network, whatever. Now I want to start my career as a Azure admin, or like, yeah, Azure admin. Or if you are from a different technical background, like I manage SAP, now I want to learn Azure admin, right? Otherwise, like you are from a non-technical background, right? So you're not from a non-technical background. So is it the right start? Yes, AZ-104 is the right start where you start learning from a scratch. Even we start in this course, the course what we are taking in Visualpath, right? So wherein we'll be learning from the bottom line from the cloud. Okay. And then there is a prerequisite, right? So there is a prerequisite wherein you need to have this knowledge, right? Okay, so what are the prerequisites? So you should have an experience or a knowledge how do you manage the operating system, right? So Windows and Linux, so we will be creating it. So here there is no expertise level required, so it's not a mandatory that you should be an expertise in managing Windows or Linux, right? So you should have some basic administration knowledge. If you have expertise level, that's fine. If at all, if you don't have any knowledge, you should learn. Anyways, like I provide some links where you can refer it. And if you are interested to learn on a expertise level, yes, you can learn on expertise level. Otherwise, that's fine. The basic understanding you can find. And next thing is about the virtualization, right? So you should know about the virtualization. What is virtualization? How do you create? How do you manage? Right. So this you should know. And you should know about the cloud infrastructure that we will be learning. You should be knowing some basics about the storage. Yes, of course, about the networking, the basics. So, right. So here you are not going to manage the physical infrastructure like your server hardware, hypervisor, storage, right? So no physical hardware you'll be managing it. So the entire in cloud we manage, we call something called as an this one what do you say, software defined data center, right? So everything you manage through the Azure portal, through the graphical user interface or through the command line, but we don't touch on the hardware level configuration and all. Okay, so you should knowing like what is networking in the sense like what is types of IPs, and what is subnets, what are the network devices in the sense how that will help you, right? So all those things you should be knowing. Okay, you should know other terminologies like domain naming system, what is DNS, what is VPN, what is firewall, what is encryption, right? So what is disaster recovery, why we required, what is backup and restore. So all this thing you should know as an overview, what it is, how that will be used in the real time, and anyways, couple of services will be covering it. Okay, so these are the prerequisites wherein you need to understand it. Yeah. Any questions, any doubts on this about the prerequisites?
I don't have any question, but I would like to have like I know this stuff. I have training, but in my work, I am assigned some projects on Azure, so I need a little bit hands-on and challenging projects and your guide. So, is there any other option you have? Because I have to work on it, and I got a job, so I want that kind of training.
Okay, sure. So we have one more thing like a real-time project. So that will be starting up shortly. Okay. So what you can do, like you can leave your contact number and your email ID will get in touch with you. So this AZ104 is for a beginners. I mean to say like not very beginners, right? So where you'll be understanding from this bottom level to the Azure administration. And if you have this knowledge, so the next level you can go with the architect or you can learn with the real-time projects. So we can talk on that. Yeah, you can drop your phone number and email ID with our administrator. So we'll talk on that. No issues.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a question from Balu. Can I take this course having gap in 3 years in career? Can I enter keeping experience as admin? Uh, Yeah, so it works in this way, all right? So the entire training is a practical oriented, as I mentioned, right? So wherein we will be discussing the services. So whatever we discussed so far, no, like the course content. So we'll be going through each and everything. We will understand that. Then I'll show you how to deploy the services in the Azure portal in a real time, right? So I'll show you one example in shortly. Okay. So that's how the training will run, right? Like we'll understand the service and we will see how to deploy the services. Then I'll be helping to create your Azure account where you can do your labs, right? So that is a real time. There is no stimulation. It's not a stimulation. It's a real time. So whatever you do in your live project, the same thing you can do it here. You will be doing it here. Okay. So now, if at all, if you're looking to put some experience, in the sense you should have some hands-on, right? So what you can do, understand the theory concept and do the practicals. So even I'll be giving the lab scenarios where you can execute that, right? So the much you do the hands-on, right? So you'll understand better, and you will come to know all the dependencies, right? So with that, yes, you can manage your interview calls or your resumes, right? So we'll help you in preparing your resume and also will help you in clearing your certificate. Clearing your certificate in the sense like how do you prepare and how do you get ready to take up your certification, right? So that will be guided along with this. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other doubts?
Hello. I don't have any experience in cloud so far. I have worked in Splunk and TIBCO. So need from very basic to want to start from very basic to learn.
That's right. So as I mentioned, no, so this is the right track. If you have experience in like on IT industry with some domain, right? Or from a different IT domain or from a non-technical background. So AZ104 is a right path where you can start understand from the scratch to the administration level.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries on that. Like we'll guide you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other doubts you have on this? Okay. All right. So let's move on. Somewhere I dropped. Okay. It's here. Okay, so this is about the prerequisite. Anyways, like I'll share some link for the prerequisite where you can learn on it. Okay, you not to worry. See, as I mentioned now here, there is no expertise level required in the sense you're not configuring the physical hardware like a server, network, or a storage device, right? So everything we manage as a software-defined data center, right? So we push our configuration like I want to create a network with this particular address range, right? So that's how you'll be defining your requirement, and it will be deployed in a straightforward. Okay. So let's see that how we can work on it. So let me go to the Azure portal. So our lab will run in the same way. So now what we are going to do is, let's take example. I have a requirement to create a server to host an application, right? So the requirement is I want to deploy a Windows Server 2016 with some amount of RAM, like 2 GB, 2 CPU, 8 GB RAM, and some amount of hard disk. and I want this machine to be available in some part of US, like we take west part of US. Okay, so what we will do, we will log into the Azure portal, right? So I'll log into the Azure portal with my credential. So this is how you'll be managing in a real time. So this is also a real time scenario what we are doing it here. Okay, so this is how wherein you'll be creating your services in a real time. So this is the Azure portal. So now what we are going to do here is, right, so I want to create a virtual machine, right? So here we are not touching their hardware, the data center and other things. So here I'll search for a virtual machine, right? So I go to the virtual machine console. So now I want to create a virtual machine. So I put my requirement in this portal, right? So I say create a Azure VM. Okay. Okay, hold on. Demo lab. Okay. So this I'll be explaining when we go to the compute topic. So today I'll be showing like put our requirement, how the server will be deployed on the back end, how do you access, right? So you get an idea. So we will discuss about the topic, what is virtual machine and what are the things you need to know. And we will see all these properties, and then we will be creating the virtual machine and we will see how to access. So for now, I'm straightforward creating. So I'll say this is my application server. So I want this in west part of US. And what is the OS you want? You can choose 2016, 2012, or Windows or Linux, right? And yeah, what is the hardware specification you want? And other required information you will be providing it here. Okay, so that's all. So there are other properties that we will discuss when we go to the our training. So for now, I'm straightforward deploying the service. So this is how you put your requirement and it will be deployed. So that's why I told you this is like we call this as a software defined data center, right? So everything you manage through the your code, like um putting your requirement in the graphical user interface or on the command line interface. Okay. Since it's a demo, I'm just telling you what all we are going to cover and how the training runs, right? And we will see a live thing like how the training runs in real time, right? Okay. Now you can see I'm deploying the service here. Okay. Still the service is getting deployed. We'll wait for it. Okay, so now you can see the server has been deployed. So if you have a server running in your on premises, right? So it's a Windows or Linux. How do you access? By taking a RDP to your Windows machine or taking SSH to your Linux machine. The same way you will be accessing your servers running in a cloud. And this is an example of infrastructure as a service, IaaS, right? So we will discuss that. So um, Yeah, you can see here the IP address. So take the IP address, the copy the IP. How do you access? The same way you'll be accessing here. So I take the, means I'll open the Microsoft Remote Desktop application. You can see here I'm taking the remote desktop connection to this machine, which is running in Microsoft data center in west part of US. If you host a Windows server in your premises, the same way you will be connecting, right? So here also you'll be connecting in the same way. There is so much difference on it. You can see this is a Windows server. This is running in west part of US in Microsoft data center. So from here onwards, whatever you want to deploy or manage, you can do it. So this is an example of IAS, and this is how our training runs. Yeah. Any questions, any doubts on this? Yeah. If you have any doubt, any questions, any doubts, let me know. We can discuss on that. Okay. Any questions, any doubts, let me know. Otherwise, if you're good, then we can hold on the demo here. Okay. All right then. So I just covered a few topics here, and I was not able to cover many things because it's a short time. That's fine. Thanks for your time for joining this demo. Appreciate that. If at all, if you have any doubt, any questions, you can drop a message. So we'll get in touch with you, and also we'll get in touch with you with the training times and all. So it will be Monday to Friday, and the timing part will get confirmed. Okay. Yeah. If you have any
I have
questions, please,
one doubt.
you know.
Do you
Yeah,
have any
Vivek.
after completing this course? Do you have any project kind of thing in fact? So every day we
Uh,
will have some practical sessions, right? Like live example showing in the portal. So
Vivek, sorry, your voice is breaking. Vivek, it's not so clear. So you're asking like after completing this project, is there any like sorry after completing this training, is there any project kind of thing?
yes, yes,
We'll do it. So whatever we do here, right? So it's a real time scenarios we'll do. Suppose if you're looking on a specific thing to how do we do this as a project, right? So we can cover that, no issues.
yes. I'm currently working in IT industry as well. I have really knowledge
Yeah,
on
yeah.
AAD, AAD part of things.
Okay. Yeah, we'll
That's
do
the
that,
most
no issues.
thing.
Yeah, Faisal. See, hands-on training experience, yes, we do that. You're looking for a customized one. No worries. We'll talk on that. You can leave your contact details, and we can discuss like what exactly you're looking in and how best we can serve that. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other doubt? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time. If at all, if you have any doubt, any questions, you can reach us. So we'll respond back to that. Okay. Happy weekend. Appreciate your time. Yeah. See you then. Bye.